I spent a decade building the future of wine, only to be told in front of 100 strangers that my name meant nothing. If you've ever been quietly erased or watched someone hand your life's work to a golden child who never earned it, stay with me. This story is yours too. Because betrayal doesn't arrive screaming. It wears a tuxedo, it smiles for the cameras, and then it kills your name. I'm Elyra Voss. I'm 38. I designed the AI that turned my family's Napa Valley winery into a $40 million empire. I thought tonight was about honoring that journey. Before I tell you how I took back everything they stole, every client, every patent, every drop of power, subscribe. One small click, but to creators like me, it's the fire that keeps our stories burning. Back then, I didn't see the knife in my father's smile. I only saw champagne. The Gala was immaculate. Gold lights dripped from chandeliers. Cello strings hummed under the soft buzz of conversation. The air smelled like aged oak and French perfume. I stood near the main bar, fingers brushing the edge of a wine glass, scanning the room for Callan, my brother. He was, as always, late to his own legacy. Then I heard my name. "Let's raise a glass," my father announced, clinking his flute under the spotlight, "to the genius who brought Voss Vineyards into the future, to Elyra." Applause erupted. I smiled, grateful. A rare moment of recognition. My chest tightened, but not from nerves, from hope. He turned to me, eyes glinting, and to my son, Callan, our new CEO. He'll carry the legacy forward. The applause slowed. A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. I didn't move. Couldn't. The glass slipped slightly in my grip. My father raised his eyebrows, smiling like nothing was wrong. "Family first," he said. 10 years. 10 years of 3 a.m. server crashes, machine learning misfires, hundreds of sleepless nights training the AI to read grape soil data better than any human sommelier. 10 years of turning our boutique winery into a global tech leader, all erased, just like that. Callan strutted in late, loose tie and lazy grin, holding a scotch he didn't pour. He clapped me on the back like a game show host. "Don't look so shocked, sis." I wanted to scream. Instead, I stepped away, slowly, carefully. I didn't trust my voice to stay steady. Behind me, the crowd kept toasting. Behind me, my father whispered, low enough that only I could hear. "Family legacy trumps talent, Elyra." I turned. My mother was stone still beside him. No protest, no blink. Callan winked at someone in the crowd. My jaw clenched so hard my temples ached. I walked out into the night. The heels bit into gravel. The vines swayed under the moonlight like they were whispering my name, mocking me. Inside, they celebrated. Outside, I swore I'd never let this end with a whisper. They wanted me out of the empire? Fine. I'd take the future with me. They didn't even try to follow me. No footsteps behind me, no voice calling my name, just laughter, music, champagne still bubbling inside crystal flutes as if nothing had broken, as if I hadn't just been erased in front of 100 people. Back at the estate, I didn't sleep. Couldn't. The house was too quiet, too clean. The sterile hum of the HVAC system buzzed above me like a lie I'd learned to live with. I stood in the dark of my home office, the moonlight catching the edge of the awards lining my bookshelves. All of them engraved with my name. None of them ever displayed at the winery. I sat down slowly, the leather chair creaking beneath me. My hand hovered over the desk drawer. I hadn't opened that drawer in years. The metal clinked softly as I pulled it out. Old contracts, crinkled sketches, meeting minutes, a faded note in my father's handwriting. "Trust the math. It doesn't lie." I used to believe that. My fingers trembled as I flipped through the thick stack of documents, scanning for a specific header: IP ownership, AI infrastructure and predictive analysis engine. There it was, page 43, signed, stamped, notarized. The proprietary code for the AI system belonged solely to the architect of record. Me. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. I blinked, then read it again, slower. All intellectual property, source code, and derivative algorithms remain the legal property of the creator, Elyra Voss, independent of brand or facility implementation. He had signed this 10 years ago, back when he still thought my code was a toy that would never work, back before it made his empire millions. I leaned back, exhaling shakily. My fingers brushed my collarbone. skin cold, damp. Somewhere in the corner of the room, the old wall clock ticked on, steady, unbothered. So this was his mistake, the thing he forgot I'd still have. He could give Callan the title, the building, even the mailing lists. But the brains of the entire system, the engine behind Voss Vineyard's global rise, was mine. A laugh escaped me, quiet, bitter, real. And then my phone buzzed. Unknown number, no caller ID. I froze, let it ring once, twice. The third buzz stopped halfway. Then, voicemail. My hands moved on their own, unlocking the screen, pressing play. Torin's voice. Elyra, don't make this harder than it needs to be. You had your moment. Now it's time to support your brother like a real family would. Come back by Monday. I'll have the lawyers clean it up. You don't want this getting messy. My stomach flipped. Support your brother, the same brother who once unplugged my servers mid-demo because he needed the Wi-Fi for Xbox? The same one who spilled wine on my backup drive and never apologized? I stood up, phone still in hand. My pulse drummed behind my ears. He didn't think I'd checked the paperwork. He didn't think I remembered. That was his real mistake. I walked to the window, pushed the curtains aside. The vineyard lay still under moonlight. Rows of sleeping vines, wires glistening with dew. I could feel my mother's absence like a hole in the soil. She used to sit right on the porch in summer and hum while I coded through dinner. She believed in the system even before it produced its first accurate harvest prediction. I wondered what she would say now, if she knew her daughter had been offered exile in a silk dress. I turned back to the desk. The contract felt heavier in my hand now. No more waiting. I opened my email and attached the scanned PDF to a new draft. Subject: Voss AI, IP ownership confirmation. I typed the recipient's address slowly. Lorraine.kanemechignite.com. Leora would know what to do with it. A soft knock at the door pulled me back. I froze. The knock came again, just once, then footsteps retreating. I stepped out into the hall, and there, on the ground by the threshold, a small black envelope. No name, no seal. I crouched and picked it up, the edge brushing my skin like static. Inside, a folded card with just 2 words typed in thin serif font. Don't trust Thane. My throat tightened. I glanced around the hallway, empty, still. Who the hell was watching me? I reread the card. That name, Thane, wasn't one I had thought about in years. Not since he ghosted after the RCI conference. Why warn me about him now? Another mystery layered on top of everything else. I tucked the note into my desk drawer beside the contract, heart pounding. Across the room, my laptop screen dimmed to black, still glowing faintly. My inbox chimed. A reply from Leora. Subject: Got it. Meet me Monday. We have options. Options. That was the first time that word didn't feel like a fantasy. But as I stared at the dark screen, one thought curled in my gut. If Torin was already threatening me, what would he do when he realized I was holding the one thing he couldn't buy back? Dawn broke in streaks of lavender and ash. I parked by the edge of the vineyard, far enough from the house that no one would hear. The vines stretched endlessly under the morning mist, dew glittering like tiny landmines of memory. My breath fogged in the cool air as I stepped out, gravel crunching under my boots. Leora was already there, hood up, backpack slung over one shoulder. She didn't wave, just nodded once, eyes sharp behind wireframe glasses. That was our language, quiet urgency, mutual trust. We met halfway between rows 12 and 14. That spot had always been our code. I handed her the flash drive. It's all there, I said. Raw code, predictive models, soil pairing modules, even the heat maps. She looked at me, thumb running slowly over the black plastic. This is everything. I nodded. Every line of code I ever wrote under this name. She didn't ask if I was sure. That's why I trusted her. Her fingers closed over it, slow and firm, like she was pocketing a live grenade. In that moment, the final thread between me and Voss Vineyards snapped. We stood in silence, the air thick with cold and old loyalties. I need 2 days, Leora said, to triple encrypt, run simulated shadows, decoy logs, just in case. You'll have it, I replied. We strike Monday, first thing. She looked over her shoulder, scanning the fog. You think they'll come after you? They already have, I said. They just haven't realized what I took with me. We walked back to our cars without speaking again. The birds were starting to sing. I couldn't tell if it sounded like warning or applause. That night, I walked into the boardroom for the last time. It smelled like polished wood, synthetic lavender, and ego. Torin wasn't there. He rarely showed up unless there were cameras, but Callan was, slouched in his chair like a bored substitute teacher. "Took you long enough," he muttered. "Dad's giving a media interview, wants me to handle this." Of course he did. My heart was steady as I opened my laptop and connected to the main display. I could feel everyone watching. CFO, legal counsel, the tech team. Half of them owed me their jobs. The other half had pretended I didn't exist. I loaded the AI control panel. One click, then another. A red banner flashed across the screen. License revoked, predictive engine disengaged, gasps rippled. One guy actually stood up. "What the hell is that?" Callan barked. "Just the end," I said quietly. "The end of what I built for you." "You can't do that," he snapped, standing. "This system belongs to the company." "No," I said, turning the screen toward him. "It belongs to me. Read the clause, section 7.2, paragraph 3. "You want a copy?" I brought one. I pulled the printed contract from my bag and tossed it on the table. He flipped through it like a child pretending to read. "What are you playing at, Elyra?" "I'm not playing," I said. "I'm leaving." A slow, painful silence settled. Then the room erupted. Legal threats, questions, insults. It all blurred. But I didn't flinch. Not when the lawyer threatened breach of fiduciary duty, not when the head of sales demanded to know where I was going. Because they all knew. Not the name, but the truth. Wherever I went, the real value would follow. My voice stayed calm. Too calm. That scared them more than yelling would have. "Effective immediately," I said. "Voss Vineyards no longer has the right to operate any part of the AI system, and you," I turned to Callan, "can stop pretending to know what that even means." His face turned red. "You'll regret this." I smiled. "You already do." I walked out. Never looked back. But the moment I reached the elevator, my phone buzzed. Blocked number, not again. This time I answered. A low voice, masked, digitally scrambled. "You're being watched," it said. "They're not the only ones." Click. I stood frozen, phone pressed to my ear long after the line went dead. Not the only ones? I took the stairs the rest of the way down. Every echo sounded like footsteps behind me. By noon, I was already on the road. Contacts list in hand, hard drives encrypted, NDAs voided by contract loopholes I'd pre-engineered years ago. Every major client I'd ever onboarded, private estates, European vineyards, even a few stealth AI buyers, were already getting a message from me, not an announcement, an invitation. As I pulled off the main highway, a shadow moved behind a row of cypress trees. I slowed. Nothing. But something lingered. Not fear, not yet, more like awareness. I parked behind the abandoned auto shop we'd been using as a decoy office and stepped inside. Leora was already there, typing with furious precision. "The backups worked," she said without looking up. "Codebase is clean, but we might have triggered something." I dropped my bag and crossed the room. "What do you mean?" "Someone tried to access the servers remotely," she said. "At 2 a.m., IP masked, high-grade obfuscation." "From inside the vineyard?" "No, from the outside, a third party." That chill again, like the one I felt in the stairwell. I swallowed. "Did you trace it?" "Not yet, but whoever it is, they knew exactly where to look." I stared at the monitor. My reflection glared back at me in the black glass, sharp, tired, resolute. We had made our move. Now someone else was making theirs. The floor creaked under my boots as I stepped deeper into the warehouse. Sunlight filtered through fractured glass panes above, casting broken beams across dust, metal scaffolding, and bundles of exposed wiring. It smelled like rust, old rain, and potential. This place had been a tire distribution hub once. Now, it would hold the second half of my life. Verdant Labs. Leora was already there, crouched near a power panel, sleeves rolled up, cables coiled like snakes around her knees. A faint hum from a portable generator buzzed behind her. She glanced up. "You're late," I grinned, dropping a coffee cup on the metal table beside her. "You're early." "This place," she said, standing and wiping her palms on her jeans. "It's hideous. I love it." We had 30 days. 30 days to turn this skeleton of a warehouse into something real, functional, secure, alive. The servers arrived first, towering black obelisks on wheeled crates. We unpacked them together, hands raw from cardboard cuts and cold metal. I labeled every port myself, tightening every bolt like a ritual. Then came the lights. Soft white LEDs to offset the brutal grayness. Then desks. Then the acoustic panels to dull the echo that made every whispered sentence sound like a scream. Each day bled into the next. I didn't sleep. Didn't notice I wasn't eating until Elyra threw a protein bar at my face. We were building something that didn't just exist. It pulsed. It defied. We weren't a startup. We were a rebellion. Midway through the second week, we got our first call. A boutique vineyard from Sonoma, Cambridge Hollow, heard whispers through their distributor. Their founder, Mari, asked if we could optimize irrigation patterns using topographic forecasting. I told her we could give her a harvest yield model 12% more accurate than anything she'd ever used. She asked how soon we could start. Elyra muted the call, raised an eyebrow. I mouthed, "Today." That was our first contract, $5.2 million over 18 months. When the deposit hit our account, Elyra and I didn't even cheer. We just looked at each other for a full beat, and then burst out laughing, the kind that hurts your ribs and feels dangerous in all the best ways. After that, things moved fast. I took back the night, worked through silence, coded like my skin depended on it. My fingers flew across keys, building visual dashboards for grape density prediction. Elyra translated my madness into clean architecture. But even in all the progress, I couldn't forget the black envelope. Don't trust Thane. I kept it tucked under my keyboard, the edge worn from my thumb brushing it over and over, like it would reveal more if I just touched it enough times. I hadn't seen Thane Carver in nearly a decade, and yet the warning sat there like a loaded gun. That tension never left. Even in our victories, something coiled inside me stayed braced, like the moment before a storm, when the sky turns too quiet. And sure enough, on a Wednesday afternoon, it came. The courier didn't knock. I only saw the envelope because I stepped outside for air. It lay half buried in dust, stamped in deep crimson. From Elyra Voss. Subject: legal notice of breach, IP seizure pending inside. A formal letter accusing me of fraudulent code removal, hostile interference, and unauthorized client solicitation. It was 4 pages of veiled threats and bloated jargon. But the final paragraph? That one was pure venom. You were given a legacy. If you wish to be remembered as more than a thief, you'll return what you stole before it's too late. My hands tightened around the paper until the edges tore. He wasn't just scared, he was rattled, and that meant we were doing something right. That night, I sat in the server room alone, surrounded by the hum of computation and the faint buzz of industrial lights. I stared at the letter, then tore it slowly, one strip at a time, until nothing remained but fluttering red dust on the floor. Legacy? He thought that's what he gave me? No, he gave me scars. I built the legacy myself. The next morning, Mari from Cambridge Hollow called again. "We ran the test batch," she said, breathless. "Elyra, it worked. We're already seeing early shift indicators. Our harvest might actually beat last year's peak." A pause. "I just want to say, what you're doing, it's not just innovation. It's giving the small guys a fighting chance." I swallowed hard. My voice cracked when I replied, "Thank you, Mari. That means more than you know." After we hung up, I stared at my reflection in the window. My hair was tied back, eyes rimmed with exhaustion, but underneath, something else. A fire that hadn't gone out. Not yet. But as I turned back to my desk, another email popped up. Subject: Media Inquiry. Lawsuit from Voss Vineyards? My chest tightened. Attached was a screenshot from a wine industry blog. Front page headline: Voss vs. Voss. Daughter launches rival lab, father fires back with lawsuit. And below that, my old headshot. The one they used when I got the Tech Innovator Award 5 years ago. I hadn't even known they were suing me. Not officially. No papers had arrived, no calls, just headlines. I clicked the link, read the quotes, Callan's smug remarks about protecting family property and upholding integrity. My jaw clenched with every sentence. And then, another ping. Elyra forwarded a legal email, Torin had officially filed for asset seizure. They were coming, full force, and I had no choice now. I'd fought to build something honest. Now I had to fight to keep it. The summons arrived at 6:17 a.m. A plain manila envelope slid beneath the warehouse door like it was just another delivery. No knock, no signature. Just silence and dread. Elyra found it first. I heard her footsteps stop, then reverse. "Elyra," she called, her voice sharp. "You need to see this." I took it with shaking fingers. The paper inside was thick, too formal, too clean. A Superior Court header, my name in bold. Notice of civil action, patent dispute, IP seizure, emergency injunction. The words blurred for a second. Not because of shock, because of rage. He actually did it. He actually had the audacity to try and take the one thing he knew didn't belong to him. "Asset freeze?" Elyra said, scanning the second page. "He's asking the court to block access to Verdant Labs' codebase until the case is resolved." "And to stop us from onboarding new clients," I said through clenched teeth. I could feel my heartbeat in my gums. It was all happening faster than I expected. "That's not just aggression," Elyra muttered. "That's war." The room suddenly felt colder. The warehouse lights buzzed faintly overhead, casting pale shadows across the concrete. Outside, fog swallowed the hills like a slow-breathing beast. I sat down hard, palms on the table. He was bleeding. That much I knew. Torin wouldn't pull a stunt like this unless something inside Voss Vineyards was unraveling, but it didn't make the blow land any softer. My mind darted to our clients, Cambridge Hollow, Paracove Cellars, the 5 new vineyards we'd signed in the last 10 days. What if they saw the injunction? What if they pulled out? Elyra dropped into the seat beside me. "We have time. He's playing dirty, but the court date isn't for another 3 weeks. I nodded slowly, but my mind wasn't calming. It was sharpening. 3 weeks was long enough to fortify, but too short to fumble. And then, like clockwork, my phone lit up with a familiar number. My father. I stared at the screen until it went dark. Then it rang again. Elyra raised an eyebrow. "You going to answer?" "No," I said. He already said what he needed to, in 4 pages of legal poison. But deep down, I knew he'd try again. He always did. Torin Voss didn't let go. He cornered, he trapped. And then he smiled while you drowned. And suddenly, I wasn't in the warehouse anymore. I was 10 years old again, standing in his study after school, holding a math quiz I got a perfect score on. I handed it to him, beaming. He didn't even glance at it. "Clara's daughter," he muttered, sipping from a tumbler of scotch. "She built a solar car prototype. That's worth celebrating." That was the first time I realized my wins didn't matter to him, not unless they made him look good. Back in the present, I let the memory settle. Let it fuel me. I opened my laptop and pulled up the firm I'd kept on retainer in case this ever happened. We had a defense strategy already outlined. We just didn't expect the attack so soon. I dictated a counter-response with Elyra listening in. Every clause Torin cited we met with documented proof of ownership. Every claim of sabotage was buried under evidence he'd signed away years ago. By noon, we had filed the response. By 2, our servers were triple-mirrored and access logged by the second. But even then, I couldn't shake the unease. Because something about the lawsuit felt rushed, off balance, like Torin had more up his sleeve. That night, I stayed late. Everyone else had gone. The hum of the servers kept me company as I paced the floor. A single phrase from the injunction kept replaying in my mind. Patent rights disputed following recent amendments. Amendments? I hadn't filed any changes. So who had? My breath caught. Callan. I sprinted to the storage room and pulled out the corporate folder from my old Voss email archives. Inside, printed copies of every patent application, license, and supporting document. And there, tucked into the back, was a page I'd never signed. A patent revision dated 3 weeks ago, submitted without my knowledge, bearing a forged digital signature. And right beneath it, Callan's name, listed as co-developer. I sank to the floor, paper trembling in my hands. So that was the play. Torin wasn't just trying to win, he was rewriting history, making it look like Callan had always co-developed the system. Elyra returned the next morning to find me still in the same spot, eyes bloodshot. I slid the forged document across the table. "He's laundering the legacy," I whispered. They're trying to retroactively steal the past to own the future. She looked at it, face tightening. This is criminal. They don't care, I said. They never have. As long as the public sees the headlines, they think the story's real. We sat in silence for a long beat. Then she asked, "What now?" I stood slowly, my shoulders stiff. "Now?" I said. "Now I show them what legacy really looks like." But even as I said it, a chill spread in my chest. Because if they were willing to forge my name, what else were they willing to do? It was the kind of afternoon that felt too quiet. The sky was overcast, a dull pewter that flattened the light like someone had turned down the contrast on the world. In the distance, I could hear the hum of delivery trucks, the sharp screech of metal being welded at the lot next door. But inside the warehouse, it was just me and the soft whir of servers breathing behind glass. I was working through a patch update, hands twitching with caffeine and fury, when I heard the tires. Not the rattling van that dropped off server parts. This was smoother, slower, more expensive. I looked up as the car pulled into view, sleek and black, chrome rims catching what little sunlight was left. It didn't belong here, not in this forgotten stretch of industrial real estate. The engine cut. Silence fell again. Then the door opened, and he stepped out. Thane Carver. Black wool coat, no tie, trimmed beard, hands in his pockets like he wasn't about to change the course of my life again. My heart dropped and rose at the same time. He didn't wave, just met my eyes and started walking. I opened the warehouse door before he could knock. "You're late," I said. "You didn't invite me," he replied. I stepped aside. "And yet here you are." Thane walked in like he already owned the floor, his eyes flicking across the server racks, the walls we hadn't finished insulating, the pile of coffee cups beside the whiteboard. "Modest," he murmured, "but I like it. Honest bones." "I didn't build it for appearances," I said. He turned back to me. "You built it to win." I didn't reply. Because he was right. Because I didn't trust why he was saying it. He reached into his coat pocket and slid an envelope onto the metal table beside us. $10 million, he said. "Convertible note. Undiluted control of your codebase stays with you." I blinked. "What's the catch?" "No catch," he said smoothly. "Just a seat at the table." My fingers itched to tear the envelope open, to see the validation in ink and signature. But I knew Thane, and I knew his deals were never clean. "Why now?" I asked. He shrugged. "Because you're cornered. Because you're dangerous. Because your father just filed federal claims he doesn't have the legal standing to enforce." I froze. "How do you know that?" Thane smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Because I used to draft them for him." The air turned electric. The hum of the servers deepened around us. "You worked for Torin," I said flatly. He nodded. "Years ago. Strategy consultant, shadow projects. NDAs buried in shell core." I stepped back. "And you thought now would be a good time to bring that up?" "I thought now was the only time to bring it up," he said, "because I'm not just offering capital, I'm offering leverage." He pulled out a USB drive, set it beside the envelope. "Emails, memos, a paper trail that proves Torin used inside contacts to pressure the patent board, that the forged revision didn't come from you or Callan. It came from a third-party legal clerk Torin bribed 2 years ago." My breath hitched. "You're lying," I whispered. He tilted his head. "You wouldn't be the first to think so." I picked up the drive, staring at it like it might explode in my hand. "Why help me?" Thane's jaw tightened. For the first time, something cracked in his voice. "Because I used to believe in Torin, and then I saw what he did to your mother." The room went still. "What did he do?" I asked. He looked away. "You should ask her that. I'm not the one who lived it." I wanted to press, to demand answers. But the twist in my stomach told me he wasn't bluffing. Thane took a step back. "You don't have to trust me. But if you want to win this war, you'll need more than code and conviction." He started walking toward the door, then stopped. "Oh," he added almost casually, "that anonymous warning you got? About me? It wasn't wrong. I've done things I'm not proud of, but you're not fighting clean men. You're fighting architects of illusion. That's a language I speak better than they do." And then he was gone. His car disappeared down the hill, leaving only the faint tang of engine oil and uncertainty. I stood alone, envelope in one hand, USB in the other. Trust him? Hell no. Use him? Maybe. Later that night, I sat on the warehouse floor, legs stretched out, staring at the ceiling. 10 million would scale us overnight. Lawyers, cloud infrastructure, a global client dashboard by summer. The evidence on that drive could blow Torrens' legal claim to pieces. But the price? Thane. In the room. In the code. In the narrative. And I still didn't know what he really wanted. I opened my laptop, plugged in the USB, file folders bloomed across the screen. Voss, forgery chain, Black Ledger, payments, Verna, correspondence. That last one made my throat close. Verna, my mother. What did Thane know about her? Why would her name be buried in the same folder as forged patents and backdoor deals? I clicked it open. Just one file. A scanned letter, handwritten, torn across the bottom, and at the top, in shaky cursive, "If something happens to me, show this to Elyra. She deserves to know the truth." My pulse quickened. I scrolled down. But the page cut off mid-sentence. I searched for a second page. There wasn't one. Only a digital timestamp, last seen, Redwood Safe House, 3 years ago. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. She'd tried to tell me. Before everything. Before the betrayal. Before the lawsuits. Before I became someone who could stare at a $10 million offer and feel nothing but dread. And now? Now I had to decide whether I was willing to walk into Thane's fire, just to burn the house that raised me. There's a particular kind of silence in failure, not the quiet of peace, but of collapse, of something once loud and arrogant falling apart so slowly that no one notices until it's too late. I imagine that's what the Voss boardroom sounded like the day Callan lost his first $1 million client. The email hit my inbox just after 8 a.m., forwarded from a friend still stuck in the machine. Subject: Peterson Winery backs out. Internal chaos confirmed. Attached: a voice note recorded from someone inside the call. The audio was grainy, muffled by distance. But I knew that voice. Callan. Rambling. Slurring slightly. I mean, we can definitely pivot the AI module to integrate soil temps or whatever. It's just a matter of getting, the tech people on it. Silence. Then the cold voice of the Peterson rep. "This was supposed to be finalized last week." And then a splash, liquid on glass, something breaking, someone muttering an apology. I didn't listen to the rest. I just sat there, fingers steepled in front of my mouth, trying not to smirk. It wasn't joy. It was something colder. Validation. I'd spent so long being told Callan was the future. Now the future was spilling wine on a 7-figure deal. By noon, the fallout was already spinning. A reporter from Viticult Tech Weekly reached out for comment. Another article previewed for their subscriber list. Whispers of mismanagement at Voss Vineyards. Elyra burst into my office, laptop in hand. "They're hemorrhaging fast," she said. "You need to see this." She played a clip from a wine conference stream. Callan attempting to answer a panel question, fumbling his mic, knocking over his water bottle, then freezing when asked about predictive irrigation modules. "I'm not the best person to speak on that. Our legacy systems are in transition." Behind him, I spotted Torren in the audience, jaw tight, hands folded too neatly in his lap. It was the only time I'd ever seen him look powerless, and for a flicker of a second, it almost made me feel sorry for Callan. Almost. But then the screen cut to black, and the next headline made my blood turn to ice. Internal audit of Voss Holdings reveals unaccounted assets. Whistleblower cites shadow safe in CEO's office. Shadow safe? That phrase struck something deep and forgotten. I closed the laptop slowly. Years ago, I remembered it. A stormy October night. I was maybe 25, working late at the estate office. I'd gone looking for an HDMI splitter and accidentally opened the wrong cabinet. Inside, a smaller safe behind the bookshelves. No keypad, no lock, just fingerprint access. I asked Torren what it was. He shut the door without a word. Now it was back. In headlines. In whispers. I couldn't shake the question. What was hidden inside it? Elyra leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You think it has something to do with your mom?" I flinched. I don't know, but I did. Some part of me always had. The Redwood Safe House, Thane's USB, the partial letter from her. All breadcrumbs pointing to something bigger, buried in that locked vault like a secret rotting behind oak veneer. The more Callan fell apart in public, the more Torin retreated into the shadows. And shadows always hide what hurts the most. Later that evening, I walked alone through the vineyard just outside our warehouse. The sun was setting low, casting copper across the rows of sleeping vines. The air smelled like cold earth and crushed leaves. My boots kicked pebbles as I walked, aimless but deliberate. It was quiet here, not like the Voss estate, not manicured, honest. And I needed honesty, even if it hurt. I stopped beside a trellis and looked out over the hills. Somewhere behind them the estate still stood, silent, grand, full of ghosts. I reached into my coat and pulled out the photo, the one I found weeks ago in an old notebook my mother had left me. She was young in it, laughing, holding a glass of wine beside Torin. But her hand was curled slightly behind her back, tucked in her palm, barely visible, what looked like a folded slip of paper. I hadn't noticed it before. Now I couldn't stop staring. I turned the photo over again, nothing on the back, but something about that gesture felt intentional, like she was hiding something even then. I slid the photo back into my pocket and turned toward the warehouse. Inside, Elyra was waiting. "There's more," she said. She held out her phone. A new anonymous tip had come in, from a private server in Croatia, encrypted, untraceable, one line of text. "The safe holds more than contracts. Find the red ledger." My stomach dropped, because I'd heard that phrase before. Red ledger. Years ago, in a drunken late-night conversation, Torin had whispered it to a visiting investor. "It's all in the red ledger," he'd slurred. "Even the Verna thing." I hadn't understood then. Now it felt like a blade I'd ignored until it was too deep to pull out. Elyra met my eyes. "What do we do?" I didn't hesitate. "We find that safe. We find that ledger." Because this wasn't just about patents or code anymore, it was about truth. And whatever was in that vault, it might just burn everything down. The night we cracked the new model, everything else disappeared. The lawsuit, the threats, the red ledger, even my mother's fractured letter. Just for a moment, all I could see was the glowing screen in front of me and the future rising from a wall of code. I hadn't slept in 2 days. Neither had Elyra. We worked side by side at the main console, the only light in the warehouse coming from our laptops and a flickering desk lamp that buzzed like a dying bee. On screen, the neural net processed the final dataset, one line at a time: soil moisture, microbial density, historical sunlight patterns, yield correlation. Then it happened. The projection line jumped. I leaned in. "Wait. Scroll back." Leora's fingers moved fast. We watched the graph redraw. A new prediction model with a margin of error so small it was practically impossible. 17.3% above baseline, she whispered. Across 2 regions. That's a full seasonal gain. I didn't say anything. I just exhaled, deep and low, like something had been waiting to leave my lungs for months. It worked. Verdant Pulse, our newest AI module, was live. And it wasn't just smarter. It was alive in a way the old models never were. It learned. It forecasted harvest outcomes not just from data, but from rhythm, intuition, time. Elyra looked over at me, blinking away sleep. "You did it." "No," I said, voice rough. "We did." We printed the outputs, highlighted the key metrics, saved 3 versions across separate servers, and then finally we sat back, bones sore, minds buzzing. She cracked open a can of Coke, handed me one. We clinked. It wasn't champagne, but it was ours. Later in the break room, if you could call it that, I found her sitting cross-legged on a crate, picking at a frayed hem on her hoodie. I dropped beside her, sipping from my cup. Cold coffee and cold air, a blend I'd grown too used to. She didn't look up. "I never told you why I stayed," she said quietly. I glanced at her. "You didn't have to." She shook her head. "No, I did. Back at Voss, I was just another tech, invisible, efficient, replaceable, but you—" Her voice faltered. She pressed her fingers into her eyes, hard. "You saw something in me I didn't even know was there. You gave me something to belong to, something that mattered." My throat tightened. I wanted to say thank you. I wanted to say she wasn't alone, that I needed this too, but the words didn't come. So I placed my hand over hers, firm and still, and that was enough, until the alert pinged. 3 quick beeps from my laptop across the room. I stood, walked over, unlocked the screen. Unauthorized code access attempt. Verdant pulse. Archive node 3. What the hell? I muttered. Elyra appeared at my side. Is that inside our firewall? It's mirrored, I said. Offline only. There's no external path. But the attempt wasn't remote. It had come from inside one of our old client demo shells, one we'd deactivated weeks ago. We traced the IP. My blood chilled. It was coming from Hollowcrest Winery, Cambridge Hollow's competitor, a firm that had never worked with us. They hacked the archive node, Elyra breathed. Someone stole the model. No, I said, swallowing. Someone gave it to them. The realization landed hard. The file wasn't breached from the outside. It had been copied, from our end. There was only one explanation: sabotage. Elyra's face darkened. One of our clients? I shook my head. No, someone closer. We spent the next hour backtracking file logs, server timestamps, and admin credentials. That's when we found the breach key, a single-use password tied to one of our internal user accounts. Not mine, not Elyra's. Simone, I whispered. She was new, brought on 3 weeks ago through a hiring referral from Thane's fund. She'd been helpful. Quiet. Too quiet. I pulled up her file. Nothing on LinkedIn. No work history outside a generic AI incubator. I looked at Elyra. Get everything off live mode. Shut down archive sharing. Full lockdown. And Simone? I clenched my jaw. Gone. But even as I tried to focus, my thoughts spun back to that USB Thane gave me. The folder I hadn't opened yet, one labeled Third Channel. I loaded it now, and there she was, Simone Aguilar. Alias, T. Rose operative for multiple IP theft rings across emerging tech sectors, planted, deliberately, and she came through his channels. My stomach turned. Elyra read the screen. You think Thane knew? I didn't answer, because I didn't want to know the answer. That night I sat alone with the printed Verdant Pulse graphs in front of me. Our AI had just changed the future of vineyard forecasting, and in the same breath, it had been stolen, just like everything else. But this time, I wasn't going to play defense. They wanted to take what I built, let them try. Because now, I knew how to fight back. The letter arrived just after sunrise, hand-delivered by a man who didn't say a word. He looked about 70, his hat pulled low, hands gnarled like old vines. He held the envelope out to me like it burned. When I asked who sent him, he only said, "She told me to wait until things broke. Said I'd know when." Then he turned and disappeared down the road, swallowed by morning fog. The envelope was pale cream, no stamp. My name written in my mother's handwriting, a version of it I hadn't seen in years, before the tremors, before the silence, back when she still believed in something. I held it for a full minute before opening it. Inside, a single sheet of paper, folded once. The same cursive, slanted, hesitant but steady. If you're reading this, it means your father finally tried to erase you. I always feared he would. My chest tightened. There's something you need to know about the vineyards, about the family, about me. My hands started shaking. I sat down slowly, the letter trembling in my lap. The morning air smelled like wet earth and fermenting leaves, ripe, familiar, almost sweet, the kind of scent that always reminded me of her. Before you were born, I had a stake in the business. 10% held in trust, agreed upon when I helped buy the land with your grandfather's loan. Your father promised I'd have a voice, that it would be ours together. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. She had never said this, not once. That trust still exists. Buried in a holding company called Silver Vale LLC. I kept the papers in a lockbox under the old red cabinet in the greenhouse. I wanted to tell you sooner, but Torin, he started watching everything I touched. I wasn't brave enough until now. I stopped reading. The greenhouse, the one at the far edge of the estate, overgrown, abandoned. You were always meant to inherit something real, not just his name, something you could grow. Tears blurred the words. I turned the page over and saw it. The last sentence cut off in the scan Thane had shown me. If Torin ever opens the safe in his office, check the lining. The rest was torn. But the meaning was clear. 2 things had been hidden from me, a trust and a truth, and my mother had tried to protect both. By the time Elyra arrived, I was already halfway through packing. She took one look at my face and didn't ask a single question. We drove in silence, past rolling hills and fences I once memorized as a child. The estate stood ahead like a memory refusing to fade, too pristine, too still. I parked in the lower orchard, far from the house where no cameras could see. We crossed on foot. The greenhouse was worse than I remembered. Half the roof caved in, vines climbing through broken panes. The air inside was damp and thick with mildew, but the red cabinet was still there, rusted shut. Elyra used a crowbar to pry it open. Inside, tools, moldy seed packets, and beneath them, a small black lockbox wrapped in weathered linen. I reached for it. My hands hesitated, not because I doubted, but because I already knew. The moment I touched it, I felt her again, felt her hands, her quiet rebellion. We opened it on the floor. Inside, original deeds, bank statements, and a notarized document naming Elyra Voss as a founding stakeholder of Voss Vineyards. 10% ownership, active until legally dissolved, which had never happened. My breath hitched. I looked at Elyra. "This changes everything." She nodded, slow. "If this gets in front of a judge, Torren's whole house of cards starts crumbling. And if we get it to the press first," she grinned, "he loses control of the narrative." We packed everything carefully, resealing the box, tucking it under Elyra's jacket as we slipped back through the hills. By dusk, we were back at Verdant Labs. I scanned the documents, encrypted them, and sent them to our attorney with a single-line subject: time to play offense. But just as I hit send, another alert popped up on my screen. An auto-triggered surveillance ping. Thane's name. My brows furrowed. He wasn't in our system. I'd locked out all access. The alert wasn't digital. It was a facial recognition tag, captured outside the Voss estate, time-stamped 20 minutes ago. I clicked the image. There he was, leaning against his car, sunglasses off, gaze fixed on something beyond the camera's field. Why was he there? What did he know? And why now? Before I could think, my phone buzzed. Blocked number. I answered. "Did you find the letter?" Thane's voice was low, calm. I didn't speak. He exhaled slowly. "There's more in that safe than just paperwork. Verna knew. So do I." I gripped the phone tighter. "What do you want, Thane?" He paused. "To finish what she started." And then the line went dead. I stared at the screen, heart hammering, because for the first time since this all began, I wasn't sure whose side he was really on. I hadn't stepped foot inside the estate in over a year, not since the Gala, not since the toast that sliced my name in half in front of 100 glassy-eyed guests. But that morning, I stood at the gate again, keys shaking in my hand, fog curling around my ankles like a dare. Elyra waited in the car down the road, engine idling. She didn't want me going in alone. I told her I had to. Some things you can only dig up yourself. The security code hadn't changed. That was Torren's weakness. He never believed anyone would challenge him where it mattered most. The front door creaked open. Inside, the air was too still, too preserved. The scent of expensive cologne and waxed wood clung to the walls, like he was trying to embalm history. The study door was unlocked. I stepped inside and closed it behind me. The safe was where I remembered, hidden behind a shelf of antique wine tomes he never read. I pushed the false panel aside and stared at the black matte box inset in the wall. No keypad, just a biometric scanner. I held my breath and placed my thumb on the sensor. It blinked red. Of course, it didn't want me. It wanted him. I sat down in the leather chair across from it, the one he used to sit in when he told me how the world worked. His world, his rules, his legacy. And then I waited, because I knew Torren wouldn't let me leave without a performance. Right on cue, the lock clicked behind me. I turned slowly. He stepped into the room in a dark wool coat, gloves in one hand, his face lined but calm. "Didn't expect to see you this early," he said. "I thought you preferred ambushes at court." I stood. "You forged a revision, had Callan sign it, tried to erase my IP ownership again." He sighed like I was the one being difficult. "That model belongs to the company. You may have written the code, Elyra, but the strategy behind it was mine," I snapped. "All of it. You signed off on it 10 years ago. You just never thought your daughter would use it to outthink you." His jaw flexed. "You were always emotional," he said softly. "It clouded your logic." "No," I said. "It gave me a soul, which is more than I can say for this house." His eyes flicked to the safe behind me. "You came for the papers, and whatever else is in there." He laughed, low, bitter. "You still think there's a secret that will save you." I stepped aside. "Open it." He hesitated. Then slowly, he pressed his thumb to the scanner. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Inside, bundles of documents, a thick red envelope, and one sealed flash drive. He didn't move, so I did. I pulled the red envelope first, labeled Equity Reallocations, Elyra Voss Trust, then the drive. No label. "Let me guess," I said. "The ledger?" He said nothing. "I know about Silvervale LLC, I added. "About the trust she kept. About how you tried to bury it under shell companies." Still silence. So I opened the envelope. Inside, an amended will, one that reinstated Verna's 10% ownership, and directed that, in the event of her silence or death, her full stake passed to me. Signed, stamped, notarized. 6 years ago, before she disappeared from public life. Before her voice began to tremble. My hands clenched the paper. "You knew," I said. "You knew she was trying to protect me." Torin looked down. "She was weak," he muttered. "She never understood what this family needed." I walked to the desk, set the will down like a weapon. "This isn't about what the family needed," I said. "It's about control, and you're losing it." His face darkened. "You think this makes you invincible?" "No," I said. "It makes me truthful. Something you've never been." Then I slid the flash drive into my bag. He moved toward me too fast, too angry. But he stopped short because the door creaked open again. Thane stepped in, not hurried, not armed, just present. "Thought you might need backup," he said. Torin sneered. "You." Thane nodded once. "Me." There was something unreadable between them, old grudges and silence. "You really think you can take this public?" Torin growled. "I don't need to think," I said. "I already scheduled the release." He blinked. "What?" I pulled out my phone. Showed him the scheduled time, 11 o'clock a.m. 5 minutes from now. Press release. Copies of the will. A press drop with the signed patents. A mirrored upload of the ledger Thane had decrypted overnight. All of it ready to go. Unless I stopped it. Which I didn't. Torin backed away slowly. His hands trembled for the first time. "You'll destroy us all," he whispered. "No," I said. "I'm saving what's left." Thane touched my shoulder. "It's time." We left the estate together, the sun cutting through the fog behind us. Back at Verdant Labs, Elyra was waiting with her laptop open. The press was already picking it up. Voss family empire faces collapse after forgery, stolen IP claims. And then, a second ping. Elyra's face went pale. "New update," she said. "What is it?" She turned the screen. A news outlet had just posted an anonymous leak. Verdant Labs' internal breach confirms code was stolen by one of their own. The image was grainy but unmistakable. Me, typing at my own server, time-stamped and edited out of context. Thane leaned in. That wasn't me. And for the first time, I couldn't tell if I believed him. The photo was grainy, the angle off-center, my posture stiff, my expression unreadable, but it was me. The headline below it was worse. Verdant Labs CEO caught altering code, leak suggests internal sabotage. It took 2 seconds for the story to go viral, 6 seconds for the first client to call, and 10 more before I felt the full weight of everything we'd built start to crack. Elyra stood frozen beside me, scrolling through the article. "This is fabricated. They edited the timestamp." "I know," I said. My voice came out hoarse. "But perception isn't waiting for the truth." The office was too quiet. Even the server hum felt thinner, like it didn't want to intrude. I walked toward the window, hand pressed to the cold glass, watching the traffic blur into a smear of color and exhaust. It wasn't just my face they were targeting. It was my legacy. I turned back to Elyra. "Call Peterson Vineyards. Tell them we'll give them access to the Verdant Pulse Beta, complete transparency, and I'll fly out if I have to." She nodded, already dialing. I crossed the room and opened my laptop. The board was meeting in 15 minutes, and they'd want answers. My hands hovered over the keyboard, but my mind was somewhere else, 15 years ago, in my dorm room, debugging my first model with a bag of stale pretzels and a gallon of fear. Back then, no one thought I'd make it, not even me. But I built something that lasted. And now, someone was trying to destroy it. They underestimated the wrong daughter. 30 minutes later, I stepped onto the floor of the Peterson contract signing event. Flashbulbs popped. My name echoed across the room from an unseen announcer. I kept my face calm, steps slow and grounded. This wasn't triumph. Not yet. But it was defiance. The Peterson CEO, Margot Lee, met me at the table, her gaze steady. She'd seen the leak. I knew she had. "Is it real?" she asked quietly, beneath the noise. "No," I said. "But the system is. You've seen the projections." She studied me, a long beat. Then she smiled. "Good. Because we're in." The contract signed at 2:16 p.m., Verdant Labs had officially secured its largest AI deal to date. A $30 million agreement across 5 international wineries, beginning with Peterson's flagship estate. Cameras flashed. Hands shook. I smiled. But it didn't reach my chest. Because none of this erased what came next. Behind me, somewhere deep in the Voss estate, the real game was unraveling. The forged documents, the red ledger, the amended will. And Callan, who hadn't been seen in days, was about to make his exit. Elyra met me backstage. He resigned. I blinked. "Callan?" She handed me her phone. The statement was bland. A transition of leadership, citing personal growth opportunities. But the subtext was clear. Callan was out. Torin hadn't made a comment, but the silence said enough. He was cornered. We returned to Verdant Labs late that evening. The lights were still on. Champagne sat untouched beside my desk. I didn't touch it. Instead, I opened the box Verna left. The trust documents, the equity share papers, and the letter I hadn't been able to finish reading the first time. "Legacy isn't something you inherit, Elyra. It's something you claim. You already have everything you need except permission. So here it is. Go build something better." I folded the page carefully, set it on my desk. Then I turned to the glass wall behind me. The city glowed in gold and red. Somewhere out there, my father was still trying to find a way back. To claw one more piece of the past before it slipped away for good. But it was already too late. That night, Verna visited for the first time in months. She stepped into the warehouse quietly, wearing her old navy coat and carrying a brown leather folder. I stood slowly. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. We just looked at each other. And I saw it. What had once been fear in her eyes was now something harder. Peace. "I heard about the contract," she said, "and the leak." "I handled it," she smiled. "I never doubted that you would." Then she set the folder down. "This is the rest of the letter, the one I tore in half the night he found out I was going to file for separation." My breath caught. She opened the folder. Inside, a scanned image, the missing second page. "There are recordings, Elyra. He said if I ever left, he'd bury me in legal ice, that you'd never see the name Voss without blood on it. But I saved them, all of them." I looked up. She met my eyes. "You don't have to use them, but if he pushes again, you push back harder." I reached out, took her hand. It was warm and real. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "For finally stepping out of his shadow." We sat there for a while, saying nothing, just letting the silence settle. Then my phone buzzed. A single message from an unknown number. "The story isn't over. Watch the East Court feed. Midnight." I looked at the time. 11:43 p.m., 17 minutes until whatever came next. The feed flickered to life at 11:59 p.m. Elyra and I watched in silence as the East Court camera, hidden in the overhang near the vineyard gates, zoomed slowly into focus. Torin's figure emerged first. Gray suit, no tie, shoulders slouched in a way I'd never seen before. He walked like a man pulling a memory behind him. Then a second figure appeared. Verna. Her steps were slow but sure. Her coat caught the wind, her face set with something heavier than fear. Intention. They stopped just outside the gates. No words at first. Just the tension of two people who'd once built a home on shared lies. Torin reached into his coat and pulled out a single manila folder. He held it out. Verna didn't move. "I burned the originals," he said, voice too low for the mic to catch clearly. "But I know you still have copies. Let's not end this like animals." Verna stepped forward. took the folder, then looked up. "You already ended it," she said, "when you taught our daughter that power was earned through silence." He turned away, then stopped. "I never meant for it to be this ugly," he said. "But it always was," she replied. The footage cut out at 12:03 a.m. just as they walked in opposite directions. I closed the laptop slowly. My hands weren't shaking. They were still. That was the last time I saw them in the same frame. The next morning, a press release confirmed what Verna had told me hours earlier. She'd filed a motion to reinstate her full equity stake, 10% of Voss Vineyards, and had officially transferred it to me. Within minutes, shares dropped. Partners began to call. By noon, Torin had stepped down. And just like that, the empire he built with secrets and stubbornness began to bleed out through the cracks he refused to seal. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Sometimes, silence is the final victory. 3 weeks later, Verdant Labs moved into its new headquarters, glass walls, rooftop garden, fully solar, the kind of place built for what's next, not what's been. At the unveiling, I stood in front of our team, hands tucked in my pockets, voice clear but low. Verdant isn't about where we came from. It's about what we're growing, together. No applause, just quiet nods, because they understood. The work wasn't done, but the foundation was real. As I walked back inside, Verna met me at the doorway. She held out a small velvet box. "This was your grandfather's," she said. "He left it for you before the vineyard was even bought." Inside, a rusted key. "To what?" I asked. She smiled. "Whatever you want it to be." Later that evening, I visited the old greenhouse again. It wasn't just overgrown anymore. It was alive, reclaimed. I stood in the doorway and breathed in the scent of soil, light, and something sweeter, closure. The vineyard had always belonged to someone else, the name, the narrative, the walls. But this part I claimed myself, and in claiming it, I finally understood. Legacy isn't a birthright, it's a decision. It's not what you inherit, it's what you refuse to pass on. Torin built an empire out of power. I rebuilt mine with truth. He held people hostage with silence. I freed them with transparency. And Verna, she gave me something he never could. Not permission, not capital, but history. Untwisted, unburied, alive. And now I get to tell a different story. One rooted in growth, in choice, in resilience. So if you've ever felt like you were written out of your own family's history, remember this: you can write yourself back in. And this time, in ink that doesn't bleed when someone else speaks louder. Thank you for listening to my story. If it moved you, subscribe, like, share, and comment below. Tell me, what does your legacy look like? And if you're ready for more stories like this one, stick around. We're just getting started.